Welcome into Hoop Streams. We're live on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and the ESPN app. Christine Williamson and Izzy Gutierrez in the studio. Before we welcome in our next, or our third co-host, I guess is what it's called.
Sure.
I just want to say, of course, the week that I'm not here, they have Trae Young. There's pictures of Wendy riding around with SGA. I mean, you guys look like you had a great time. We're going to have a great time tonight as well as we welcome in, thank you, the third member of our squad who's holding it down on the opposite coast, Ohm Youngmisuk. Hello, everybody. How are we doing this fine Wednesday Eve?
Doing okay.
I was like, obviously really great. Okay, so we have a lot to get to. Obviously, the NBA season is winding down. We're going to have a MVP conversation, talk about the NBA playoffs. Jamal Collier is going to join us from Milwaukee. But as I mentioned, the NBA season is winding down, which means that it's time to give away some awards as we look at how players have been doing throughout the entire season. So we're going to give out some awards as individuals here, starting with Defensive Player of the Year. Izzy, I'm going to start with you on this one. Who do you have as Defensive Player of the Year this season?
Well, I got Jaren Jackson Jr., and I think it's sort of a two-man race here between him and Brook Lopez. And I know Brook has played more games, played a lot more minutes, and, you know, the Bucks defense is pretty stellar too. But the Grizzlies defense, top 2 in defensive rating. They're second right now. And I understand, you know, less minutes, more fouls, doesn't really, get too many fouls, basically. Let's just call it. Not on the floor enough. But when he is on the floor, he is so dynamic defensively, really creates an identity for that team when he is out there. And so I think for those, moments that he is out there, for those 28 minutes a game that he is out there, I think he's Defensive Player of the Year. I will say, though, I think the hardest working defensive player in the league is Bam Adebayo. But until that team is like top 3 again in defense, he's not going to win it.
Okay. Ohm.
Hey, what's going on? I had some audio issues, so I literally am just hearing you guys right now.
Perfect. Okay, so Defensive Player of the Year, who do you have on the season?
Oh, Jaren Jackson Jr. Besides the fact that I am a Spartan as well, I'm trying not to be biased here. I got the from Izzy. Look, I love what Brook Lopez has done, and I do feel like Jaren Jackson Jr. is at the borderline where he hasn't played enough games. But 3.0 blocks per game, that is awfully impressive. Memphis defense and Milwaukee's defensive numbers are pretty similar, so I got Jaren Jackson Jr.'s Defensive Player of the Year because of 3 blocks per game.
Yeah, I mean, I think we both got Triple J, but I feel like Brook Lopez probably could get mad if he doesn't win it.
Yeah, Brook Lopez, obviously in the two-man race along with Triple J, but slightly more favored is Jaren Jackson Jr. across major sports books. So we'll see how that goes. All right, how about Sixth Man of the Year, Izzy? What are you thinking there?
Well, I know the guy who's got all the sort of momentum going into the awards season is Emmanuel Quickly with New York, but I got to go with Malcolm Brogdon in Boston. And I think it's sort of just an all-season thing, right? You look at Emmanuel Quickly and his numbers, and in March he was fantastic. It was 20 points a game, I think 4 and 5, something in that neighborhood. But Brogdon's been doing it all season long. He's been doing it for a team that's had a better record all season long than the Knicks. And, when you look at his position, that point guard position, think about what the Celtics were last year. They were a little bit of a mess before they got sort of organized and moved the ball more. Well, Malcolm Brogdon is a perfect sort of number 2 point guard there. You don't have to worry about Marcus Smart doing all this crazy stuff now. You've got a steady point guard. You can play Marcus off the ball a lot more. And Brogdon's just been an absolute fixture for that Celtics team, so I got to give it to him.
Okay. What do you think?
Call me old school, but I like my 6th man to actually come off the bench. And this is not any fault to Emmanuel Quickly, who obviously has had to fill in when Brunson's been out. And he's been on a tear since All-Star break. But Malcolm Brogdon shot 48% overall, I think 43 from 3, pretty much 44%. He's come off the bench almost every game. And, of course, I do like the Celtics having been a top 2 team almost all season long, with Malcolm Brogdon being a big piece of that. He plays both ways. I like Malcolm Brogdon as my 6th man of the year.
All right, so Emmanuel Quickly is currently the favorite at all major sports books at around minus 300. But Brogdon is second favored. And Bobby Portis is a long shot right after those two. Okay, so at the midway point of the season, there were a lot of players that were very, very much making strides and improvements from last season. However, now at this point in the season, Izzy, who would you say do you think should be most improved player?
I'm going Shea Butter. I'm going Shea Gilgeous-Alexander here. And look, I'll start with the guy who I'm not picking, and that's Lauri Markkanen, because I think, look, Lauri's a guy, and this call me old school, but I want my most improved players to improve, okay? Not just change positions and change roles. And Gilgeous-Alexander has just gotten so much better. And what I love about this year is look at those three-point attempts. They're way down. He knows his strengths. He doesn't have to stretch the defense. He doesn't have to shoot from out there, even though when he does, he's still making a good rate. But he gets in that mid-range. He gets in the paint. He gets to the lane. Restricted area paint numbers off the charts this year. And so you talk about a guy who's play-in tournament. Nobody thought this about the Oklahoma City Thunder. Nobody thought he could even get better than he did last year. And he is one of the best players in the league and like low-key MVP candidate. It's got to be Shea for me.
All right, Ohm.
Yeah, I got to agree with Izzy here. I mean, the fact that Shea Gilgeous-Alexander was a great player prior to this season, but to make the jump from, I think, 24 points to 31 to averaging almost 32 points per game, you now are gone from star to superstar. You are a true, legit MVP candidate. That is a massive leap for me. And also, it's very hard to make that jump from being a very, very good player, star player, on the cusp of being a rising star to then becoming a superstar. I think that's a massive jump for me. And I did not expect Oklahoma City to be even in contention for the play-in.
Right.
He has been terrific this season. I really like Shea Gilgeous-Alexander as the most improved player.
John Morant just did that, right? Won the award, made the leap.
Right.
There you go.
You guys agreeing on pretty much everything. Izzy, you did mention Lauri Markkanen. He is the favorite in every major sports books with SGA right behind him. Okay, so I feel like this one is kind of easy, and I mentioned that you guys are agreeing on everything. I feel like you guys are going to agree on this one as well. But Rookie of the Year, who do we have? Izzy.
Sports debate television doesn't really work when we're all agreeing. Paolo Banchero from the Orlando Magic. Look, I don't think there's any question here. He's a wire-to-wire winner of this award. I think most people, at least I did for sure, but a lot of people maybe wondered how his game would translate into the league. And, you know, I kind of look at him as a Jimmy Butler 2.0. Like, doesn't need that three-point shot like Shea Gilgeous-Alexander doesn't, but he also, you know, works it defensively, is comfortable with his shot, even though he's not a great shooter, and has great body and plays, you know, strong defense. And so I think one three-pointer in February, I believe it was, not the greatest, 1 out of 33, but hit like 37% in March after that. So he's not afraid of the shot. He's not going to become a Ben Simmons. He's more Jimmy Butler for me. I think he's Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, Paolo Banchero, I mean, sealed this one to me like in the first month when he was on an absolute tear. I mean, he has struggled since, and now he's kind of turned it on a little bit at the end there. And yeah, the three-point shooting is a little bit of a concern, but I think 20 points per game, 7 rebounds per game. And Orlando also, like, winning more games than I thought they really would. I thought they were going to be in the Wembanyama sweepstakes right from the get-go. So I think you have to attribute that a little bit to Paolo Banchero. So, yeah, this is a runaway Rookie of the Year.
Okay, so since we've agreed on literally everything, I'm going to intro this part of the conversation with the fact that a lot of people disagree when it comes to the MVP award. And Izzy, I understand that this season's race has kind of changed your idea of how the MVP should look. Why is that?
Well, it's because it's so close. And so you look, and so my whole thought process is, look, I'm a rules guy, okay? I like rules. And the rules are, it's a regular season award with no other season should come into play. It's just that one season. And where I've kind of changed on that is this one has been so close. And Jokic has obviously won his. Like 20 years from now, we're going to look back at this time in the league and not say, oh, Jokic absolutely dominated. We're going to say, oh, it was Jokic. It was Antetokounmpo. It was Joel Embiid. But without that trophy, is it really going to feel like he did? Will it feel like he's always been in second place? So I look at it like Jokic doesn't care. These players don't really care that much. Embiid does. But if we're going to go ahead and just say, all right, let's tell the story of the league, maybe you do have to sort of play with the rules a little bit. Maybe you do have to say, okay, I'm going to play with the narrative and vote for that as opposed to vote for, because it's so close. It's so razor thin. I mean, Giannis has been thrown into third place. I don't know how. You add up points and assists. Like, it's, even if you just call all those assists 2-point buckets, it's still more than Embiid. So it's so razor thin that I'm just like, you know, okay, I'm going to give it to the guy who hasn't won one yet and say, you know, this era has been top heavy and there was no one dominant player, but there was 3 guys that just really were dominant. And this comes after I picked Jokic on an ESPN.com 5-on-5. So that's how close it is. And that's how and I changed my mind on it. And I think it's just going to be Embiid's, and I think it should be Embiid's.
Okay.
Izzy, you know I love my old school R&B. Mm-hmm. And so, you know I love Janet Jackson. And it literally has been, what have you done for me lately? Mm-hmm. If you had asked me this last week when I was in Denver and Joel Embiid did not play, I was ready to tell you, well, my MVP is Nikola Jokic. And I'm not saying because I thought Joel Embiid was ducking him or anything like that, but I needed to see those two play head-to-head one more time. I needed something to sway me one way or the other. And I got to say, it happened last night. For Joel Embiid to shoot 20 of 25, 52 points, 13 rebounds against the Boston Celtics. I get there was no Robert Williams. For him to do it on national TV. And I was flipping channels, okay? I mean, on one screen, I was watching Jokic and the Nuggets just stink it up against the Houston Rockets. And literally, Jokic had a turnover. Tari Eason has a dunk, timeout. Michael Malone takes the starters out. And on the other screen, Joel Embiid scores and gets 52. That, I think, really kind of sealed for him. But you know what? Listen, it is April 5th, 4:10 p.m. on the West Coast in California. I still may change my mind in the next few days, but I got to say, I think this is the closest that I really feel Joel Embiid is the MVP and is going to get my vote. I will wait till Sunday, but I think it sealed it last night.
How many screens in your house, Ohm? How many screens you got?
I have one 85-inch screen, and then I had the computer on, and I have my phone as well.
Oh, okay.
85-inch is a huge
Too big.
screen. That's
Too much
so
TV.
Big. Okay, so is there anything, we're going to talk to Jamal Collier a little bit later in the show about this, but is there anything that Giannis Antetokounmpo can do to kind of raise his stock in the MVP conversation with the 3 seconds that we have left in the NBA season at all, Ohm?
Yeah, I think if he keeps racking up triple doubles and he doesn't rest, I think tonight he's resting. But if he keeps a couple more triple doubles and they're incredibly impressive, perhaps he can leap over Jokic for second. And I think some people maybe even thinking for first place as well.
Maybe 60-point triple doubles, but he's got no shot.
Jeez, just put up the points. Okay, so obviously we want to give a shout out to Mike Brown we didn't talk about Coach of the Year, but he has done an excellent job out there in Sacramento, and he's definitely probably a shoo-in for Coach of the Year. That's why we're not even going to have the conversation, because we already know that the guy is holding that spot down. Okay, so last night the Lakers, they got the dub, and that means that they're going to be in the play-in tournament. Now, LeBron James was a huge part of that win, obviously, and I want you guys to listen to how his teammates celebrated in the locker room after the win.
If you can make shots offensively, you got to be able to get stops down the stretch, especially when you're playing against teams that's been scoring. So we had to get stops, and we did that. I got to stay focused. I'm locked in, y'all.
I mean, what good goat sounds. Those are really good goat sounds.
Goats,
It sounded like
I thought
real
they were sheep.
No. What? Okay, so with less than a week to go in the regular season, there's still plenty to be decided for the upcoming playoffs, especially out west. So let's start there and take a look at the current standings. Here they are. The Nuggets have a 2-game lead on the Grizzlies for the #1 seed and home court throughout the West. The Kings look to be locked into the 3rd seed. Where it gets interesting is 5 through 9, where just 2 games separate the Warriors in 5th from the Timberwolves in 9th. Izzy, let's start with that play-in traffic jam, where the most intriguing team has got to be most likely the Lakers. They clinch a spot in the play-in with the win over the Jazz last night. Where do you see the Lakers ending up when the dust settles on Sunday at the end of the season?
Well, I will say this, I know LeBron definitely looks ahead at these things, and if there's anybody, people who say let the dust fall, let the cards fall where they may, the dust settle, he's not that type. He likes to really manipulate things, and you look at that 6th seed, and that's exactly where the Lakers want to be. Going back to Miami Heat days when they were playing the Oklahoma City Thunder in those NBA Finals in 2012. They lost Game 1 in Oklahoma City, and then they came back into the locker room and they said, we've got this series, because they knew that team was too young, too inexperienced. And it's just, people talk about it a lot. It's a real thing in playoff series. No matter how deep you get, if you run into a more experienced team, they're going to find ways to beat you. So if you look at the path that the Lakers would have if they got that 6th seed, it would be an inexperienced Kings squad with Harrison Barnes as basically their most playoff experienced guy. And then it would potentially be a Memphis Grizzlies team, which stat of the year, which hopefully he hasn't turned 30 yet, but Steven Adams, their oldest player, only 29 years old, still shocking. You look at that and LeBron's thinking, oh, wow, there's my path to the finals. There's my path to the conference finals. And maybe I'll meet KD there. Maybe I'll meet Jokic. But that 6th seed is definitely where they want to be.
Yeah, Izzy, I think everybody wants that 6th seed. I wouldn't be surprised if the Clippers want that 6th seed. And I think, look, we still got to find out if Anthony Davis and LeBron James are going to play tonight, but I have a feeling that they might not. And that the Clippers could win tonight for an 11th straight time over the Lakers. They would obviously already have this season tiebreaker. So I think the Lakers are going to end up somewhere in the 7th or 8th seed, which is still not too bad. As you said, like they would face a somewhat still inexperienced Grizzlies team. Yes, they made it to the second round last year, but when Ja Morant got hurt and even when he came back, their inexperience was kind of exposed by Golden State in that second round. So I think facing LeBron and AD, that would be a tough task for them. Or even if they were to face the Denver Nuggets, if they were to be the 8th seed, I think the Lakers would welcome that matchup. I mean, Denver is limping to the finish line. We don't know if Nikola Jokic really has kind of a calf issue. Jamal Murray only played 4 minutes the other night. And, of course, these two teams face each other in the Western Conference Finals, and we saw what Anthony Davis did. And I think Denver fans would probably be like, oh, no, Nikola Jokic is going to get in foul trouble again facing Anthony Davis. You know, I think that would be a series that the Lakers probably could feel confident and think that they have a chance to upset the Denver Nuggets.
Well, tonight, this is the actual story of the Lakers season, availability. They're on a back-to-back. Last night, they had the overtime game against Utah. Tonight, you've got this game against the Clippers, huge game, and you've got doubtful LeBron, perhaps a questionable maybe, and a doubtful Anthony Davis, maybe even questionable about it. Basically, game-time decisions. And when you're trying to avoid playing another game, meaning playing that play-in, go ahead and play this back-to-back. And, you know, you could probably tell early on if they have it or not, and then decide, all right, if we don't have it, we'll pull these guys and save their legs a little bit. But you've got to, if I'm LeBron, if I'm Anthony Davis, you got to go tell them out there, they've got to play tonight. They've got to fight through and sort of put their stamp on this end of the season and then take those few days to rest up going into that playoffs as a 6th seed.
This is not me and you covering the Miami Heat and Knicks in the late 90s. You know this is now 2023. You know these players, you know medical staffs like to keep these guys out. Dude, Anthony Davis has not played a back-to-back since November 7th. He has played one back-to-back the entire season. LeBron James hasn't played a back-to-back since January, and obviously he's just coming back from a foot issue.
Now's the time.
I don't know, man. I'd be a little surprised. I really want to see them play tonight, and I think they know what's at stake, but I'd be a little surprised if we see them.
If they do win tonight, Austin Reeves just get the entire bag at the end of the game. Just not even wait till the offseason.
I do want to say, because Izzy, I talked to Perk about that specific thing yesterday, about the fact that AD hasn't played a back-to-back since November 7th. And he said he agrees with you, Izzy. He needs to play. If there's going to be games on the schedule, if anything is happening right now, that he needs to play in a back-to-back, because the Lakers could get as high as the 5th seed. And knowing that, they would be in the 4-5 matchup in the playoffs, right? They would play the Suns. Is that a matchup that you think, Izzy, that they would like to avoid?
Absolutely. And you could fill in any team there and say they'd like to avoid it. Maybe not the Warriors, because a little bit of maybe revenge factor for the Warriors against KD. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, I talked earlier about them not letting the dust settle. There's no chance he wants to face Kevin Durant, Chris Paul, Devin Booker. I mean, it's not just the fact that, you know, they faced each other in the finals and KD came up both times, but that's just a nightmare of a team to have to defend if you're a little bit older, if you're, especially the wing players, a little bit tougher to maintain that speed throughout a game, throughout a 7-game series, defending KD, defending Devin Booker, and knowing how well Chris Paul can orchestrate all that, even if he's not the scoring threat that he was before. I'd say it'd be a nightmare matchup for the Lakers.
I think there are 3 teams to everybody in the West that would be a tricky proposition for them and that teams kind of would rather kind of avoid. 1, the Phoenix Suns because of Kevin Durant. Number 2, the Golden State Warriors. I've heard some coaches tell me, like, yeah, we're not really afraid of anybody in the West, but Golden State, you know, because they have that experience, they know how to turn it on, and when they did it last season, that is one team that's a little scary. And then, of course, a healthy LeBron James and Anthony Davis. Teams would rather not face them early, especially like, you know, look, such a great season for the Denver Nuggets. Your reward might have to be the Los Angeles Lakers in the first round. What kind of reward is that? So certainly for the Lakers, from their perspective, I think you want to avoid the Phoenix Suns as long as you can and find that's the sweet spot, just like Israel said, is the number 2 and 3 seeds to try and play one of those 2 guys, whether it be Sacramento or whether it be, Memphis.
Okay, let's talk about the top 4 in the West right now. Nuggets, Grizzlies, Kings, Suns. Let's play a little game of contenders or pretenders. Izzy, you give us a pretender, and then I'm going to have you give us a contender out of those 4 teams. Izzy, you start us off.
And I hate to do this to them, because you mentioned Mike Brown earlier, runaway coach of the year, and it's such a good story, and they're so fun to watch. It's the Kings. It's the Kings because of their lack of experience. And you look at this offense and say, yeah, it's like a historic offense. It's like by far the number 1 offensive rating team this year. But then look at that assist percentage. They're like down around 7. And above them is teams like the Warriors and the Suns and the Celtics and teams that sort of know how to transfer that regular season offense into the postseason, moving the ball, making sure that they can still get space for their main scorers. With this Kings team, you can already see it happening. If their normal offense isn't working and somebody like Keegan isn't on fire, then you're probably looking at De'Aaron Fox having to create some more. And that's just going to be a little bit more difficult in the playoffs. And his shooting percentages are going to be a little bit lower in the playoffs. And as a team, their offense just isn't going to be good. And then you look at their defensive rating and they're 24th, 25th, somewhere in that neighborhood. And so if that defense carries over into the playoffs, they're going to be toast in the first round, especially against a team like the Lakers, maybe the Warriors, who have players with so much experience.
Izzy, respect the beam, man. Come on. How about the ghosts of Chris Webber and Peja Stojakovic?
Ghosts.
Come on. Look, my contender would be Phoenix. I was just looking at this ESPN stats and info stat. The Suns improved to 7-0 with Kevin Durant. So in the little time that they've had Kevin Durant, they've been undefeated. Kevin Durant's actually won 24 of his last 26 games. That's how good Kevin Durant is, and I am ready for him to remind everyone come playoff time how good he is, but also that he's going to have Devin Booker on his side and Chris Paul getting him the ball. Look, I know the Suns may have some depth issues, but I really do like them. I think they are the contender of those 4 teams.
I'm not falling for it again, Ohm. I've seen these big threes get put together so hastily, and then something happens.
True.
Something terrible happens. It could be an injury, could be something that's unexpected. I think something's going to happen to that team, and they're not going to win it this year.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. We saw a team completely fall apart with their acquisition of a certain player, that is Kyrie Irving in Dallas. But, I mean, I feel like we can't blame Kyrie for the whole entire collapse of what happened in Dallas. Izzy, what do you think the situation and the issue is?
I mean, sometimes it is that. Sometimes it's the player. I don't think it's Kyrie being Kyrie. I think it's fit with Luka. I don't think Luka necessarily needs a guy who can handle the ball that much on his team. I think it's crazy sounding, but if anybody's ever going to take a chance on Kyrie, they've got to give him the keys. He's got to be the lead guard on a team. He can't be Luka's sidekick. And Luka's just not happy. Luka plays a lot of basketball. He has to have that joy with him. Just doesn't have it playing along Kyrie, and it shows. And when you don't put in that much effort because you're not having as much fun, your team's not going to follow you the same way.
Yeah, Luka definitely doesn't look happy. I don't know if it's something off the court or I don't think it's anything Kyrie is doing inside the locker room, but I don't think this is a good fit. I just think Luka needs the ball even more than he usually has it with Kyrie Irving. So I'd be really interested. And also, let's not forget, Dallas had defensive issues, and that's before they got rid of the best defensive player in Dorian Finney-Smith. So, Dallas has got a lot of work to do to retool that roster.
All right, guys, there is a matchup tonight that we're looking forward to in just a few minutes, actually. The Bulls taking on the Bucks. Take a look at this.
It can't be touched, only felt. It can feel the air and be cut with a knife. Silent, but deafening. Invisible, but blinding.
These are critically important games.
Winding through a league with teams so tightly bunched and squeezed together.
This is going to be a wild weekend in the NBA.
No showtime. What you got, Giannis?
One slip could alter the order of things. At the top, bottom, and everywhere in between. So don't look over your shoulder. Only look ahead to rise above the tension.
This is going to be a wild finish.
It is now time for the main attraction as we get you ready for Bucks Bulls coming up here in just a few minutes. And to do that, we bring in Jamal Collier, who is on site in Milwaukee. All right, Jamal, we had a conversation about the MVP race, and obviously the Bucks have a former MVP on their squad. Why do you think that Giannis has been overlooked when it comes to the season's MVP race?
It's the LeBron effect, right? Like, once we decided that Giannis and kind of like LeBron and people of kind of that ilk in the past were the best player in the league, we almost put them into this, like, little category where they don't really get the MVP love like all the other guys that might be doing it for the first time or might be sort of kind of shiny and new. And Giannis, all he's doing is putting up numbers, 31, 11, 6, numbers that hasn't been done in the NBA on that kind of shooting efficiency since Wilt Chamberlain. And his team's got the best record in the league. They've got a better record than Embiid, better record than Jokic, and he's done a lot of this without his second best player in Chris Middleton. I know a lot of people around the Bucks are perplexed. I myself am a little bit perplexed of why Giannis seems to be a distant third in this conversation. I know Doc Rivers said the other night that this thing feels over after Embiid had that big game for Philly. But he's kind of forgetting that a few days before Embiid came here and Giannis beat him again, as the Bucks have been doing all season. Really going here is that I think Giannis should get much more love for this MVP, and I think that this being a two-man race and him being a distant third just doesn't feel right to me when we know that this has really been his league and his era these past couple of years.
Okay, so you mentioned the fact that Doc just said the MVP race is completely over, but we have 5 more days left in the regular season. So is there anything that Giannis can do to make a push to possibly be a little bit more in that MVP conversation?
It's going to be tough. I mean, he's not playing tonight here against the Bulls on the second game of a back-to-back. And, the Bucks are already in first place. He's already done all the carrying this team without Chris Middleton and throughout the injuries. So it's really hard to see if Giannis can have the kind of performance. He just is not going to have the minutes in some of the games that Embiid and Jokic have, and especially just the last couple of years of Embiid coming up as close to Jokic and Jokic sort of going on the verge of history. It feels hard for me to see exactly how he makes up the difference here, but I do think that when you look at the totality of it all and you stack up Giannis's numbers, especially kind of on that per 36 basis, is voters going to have a chance to look at it all together and say, man, Giannis has got a really, really good case. But short of some people doing some reflecting, I don't know if Giannis can do anything else in these last couple of games that he hasn't done already.
Okay, so the Bucks could wrap up the #1 seed tonight with a win over Chicago. Have the guys talked at all about what the advantage would be to have home court advantage in the first round of the playoffs?
Yeah, the Bucks remember going back to last year, last day of the regular season, they had a chance to move up in the standings, and they decided to rest their key players. Drew Holiday started the game just to fulfill a contract bonus, but basically all their frontline rotation players sat that game. They lose on the final day of the season. Boston ends up taking the seed ahead of them. And when that second round series happens against Boston and Milwaukee, they have to go on the road for a Game 7. And that's something that's stuck in the player coach's mind here, that now with a chance to make the Eastern Conference come through Milwaukee, they want to take advantage of that. So they really want to wrap up this one seed. It's been a focus for them the last couple of months. They've been playing with purpose to try to make sure that they have at least that advantage in their corner with all the other advantage they have. They feel with the veteran and the way their team has been playing so far. But I think that, these next couple of days, they really want to wrap this one seed up and have a chance to do both, get some rest and have home court advantage going into the postseason.
Jamal, this team's just a couple of years removed from their title there. How much pressure is there then to reach the finals again and win another title with this group?
It's kind of some sneaky pressure, because you think of the Bucks, they seem like this sort of engine that just kind of keeps chugging along. They just roll out 50 wins. Giannis is kind of sustained here. He signed a big extension, and I do believe, and he said it very recently, that he wants to stay in Milwaukee as long as possible. But, he also wants to win. And the Bucks are not a young team. They've got a lot of guys. Most of their most important players are over 30. And they've got a few players who are also coming up on free agency at the end of this season. Brook Lopez is on the final year of his contract. He's been huge for them. Defensive Player of the Year candidate. Chris Middleton, been in and out of the lineup the last year, really, with injuries. He's going to be a free agent, could be a free agent this year. He does have a player option to pick up, but he's going to be looking for a new long-term extension. And the Bucks are kind of in a situation where everything looks good and tidy here, but you all of a sudden have a disappointing playoffs, or you fall short of really their goal, which is finals and championship. Then you got to make some decisions. You keep running this back and hoping that things change over the next 2 years. If you, say, fall to Boston for a second straight year, I think those are real things that are on the line here for Milwaukee, and that's why a deep playoff run for them, and really a championship, I think, is really the expectation around here. Anything short of that is going to have them reevaluating what they are going to do in the offseason.
A lot of the role players changed from that team, but do you see many similarities between the championship team and this one?
I do, and I think a big one is last in that championship team who they had starting next to Giannis was P.J. Tucker, and now they have a guy who can fill that P.J. Tucker kind of role in Jay Crowder. They didn't have that. They tried to find it going into last season, and have tried to find it for a while, but having Jay Crowder and really just having the depth that they have on this team, where they can play a lot of different looks, a lot of different lineups, whether they play big, they play small with Giannis at the 5, they can load up with Bobby Portis and Brook Lopez and Giannis and Chris Middleton and a bunch of big dudes as well. They just got a lot of versatility on this team. And, of course, the big players, the big three, Giannis, Middleton, and Drew Holiday are still there. So they really feel like this is the best team that they've had, even including that championship, and the deepest team that they've had, especially when you consider the experience that they, have gained the last few years being together and coming off that finals run.
You know how I know Jamal's a younger reporter, Christine, because he called it the LeBron effect. In my day, he called it the MJ effect on MVP voting. But thanks, Jamal. Looking clean, by the way. I like the polka dots. Very nice.
I love that. I love that so much. Okay, so obviously you said this is one of the best teams that the Bucks feel like they've had in a very long time. Who gets the win tonight?
Even without Giannis, I do think the Bucks are going to be motivated to clinch that #1 seed. Both teams are coming off a back-to-back. Didn't play, the Bulls were in Chicago, but the Bucks were on the road in D.C. But I do like the Bucks to go ahead and win this one and lock up that #1 seed and kind of line up their team the way they wanted to the next couple of days.
All right, we'll see what happens. Jamal, have fun in Milwaukee. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
All right, Ohm is back with us. Ohm, I'm going to ask you this as we get ready for this matchup. How do you see this one playing out?
Look, I like the Bucks. I know Giannis is not playing, but they're hungry, and I think they have something to prove. I think the Bulls basically did locked into their play-in spot, so maybe they might relax a little bit.
Izzy, how do you feel?
I mean, the Bulls late in the season have been able to put up a 140 burger every once in a while. So I think that there might be some, some back and forth there a little bit. But I think I got the Bucks too. I think they've got a little bit of a mission. I don't think Giannis cares about MVP, but I do think the team wants to lock up that #1 seed.
I thought we were going to get a disagreement there, which I would have loved, because then we could have actually seen who
Let's
won
talk about
that
jackets.
One.
We should disagree on that.
Unfortunately, we didn't get that one. Okay, guys, it's been so great hanging out. Ohm, great seeing you. Izzy, always great working with you as well. We'll see you guys later. Thanks for watching Hoop Streams.
LID to play.